Hello class. Hello class. So I just want to talk with you about how to develop the painting once you have the first layer established. Okay, in the first layer, our goal was just to capture the general colors across the whole canvas. So just keeping things simple, squinting your eyes and just capturing the general colors. In the first layer, it's okay if little bits of canvas show, but in the subsequent layers, you'll be filling those in. Now, once you got the first layer established, in the subsequent layers, you're going to be looking for the nuances in color. So these are the little differences within each form. So for example, if we're looking at this bush, it's not the same green across. In some cases, there may be portions that are a little bit darker, capturing that. Within this, there's some very light green sections you could capture. Within the ground, there's some parts that are a little bit or of an orangey brown, and some parts that are much more gray. And we're also going to be creating a greater density of marks. So rather than just have two sets of marks next to each other, you could create many layers of marks, and that creates a little bit more visual interest. I think it's a little more interesting when there's multiple colors combined together to create one color. And remember, you're doing this all with one brush. Okay, so I'm using a filbert, and I'm going to try to keep the mark pretty consistent. Now there can be some variation. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, the same direction and whatnot, unless you want it to be like that. But you want them to be within the same family of marks. So you want some similarity and consistency to be brought among them. Okay. Another thing I want to talk about is that there's many ways to create a color. For example, green can be created by mixing yellow and blue. Green can also be created by mixing yellow-green and blue-green. It could also be created by mixing a lighter green with a darker green. Gray could be created by mixing, a middle gray can be created by mixing a very light gray with a very dark gray. It could also be created by mixing some bluish marks next to some orangish marks, okay? And those are complements on the color wheel, so they'll create a gray when they're combined together optically. So experiment with how you could mix a color optically, and realize there's not one way to create a color. And really this comes down to your own artistic interpretation and freedom to create the color the way you want it. So I'm gonna get started. So I know there's just some lighter components over here. Some very light gray marks. Okay, I also see some orangey leaves right here. See some orange back here. I'm gonna start to develop this a little bit more. You don't necessarily have to just work on one component at a time. You could jump around a little bit. And even though we're capturing the nuances of the color, remember that you don't have to worry too much about detail. Just try to pull your perception back, okay, and just look for the general impression of what you see. I see a little bit of yellow. So throw a little yellow in there. Or yellowish green. And now looking at this, I'm realizing this overall is quite a bit darker. So I'm gonna make some darker green marks. And overall, I think it should be a little bit lighter. So I'm gonna come through some lighter brown marks. Line it up. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of blue marks in here. So it looks a little bluer than I have it. All right, so I'm gonna leave it at this point, but you get the idea of how you could develop it from the first layer. What I would do if I continue to work on this is make sure that these little white areas are filled in.